What's the most disturbing thing you ever uncovered at your kid's after-school program? My 7-year-old son, Micah, started coming home dazed and dragging. He'd fall asleep at the dinner table, slur his words, complain his tummy hurt. One afternoon, I picked him up from the program and he could barely walk to the car, his eyes glassy and rolling. I was reaching for my phone to call his pediatrician when I noticed a chalky white film in the bottom of his water bottle. I dabbed a finger in it and tasted it, and my blood ran cold. It was bitter in the exact way of the sleep aid my husband takes, the kind that flattens a grown man in 20 minutes. Someone at that program was dosing my child. I drove straight back and demanded to see the director. She told me that was a very serious accusation and asked what proof I had of who did it. There were 2 aides who ran Micah's group, Ms. Pruitt, who'd been there 12 years, and a younger woman, Bree, who always looked frazzled and behind. I said the proof was in the bottle and that my son could barely stand. She looked at me like I was unhinged and suggested the residue was probably just leftover electrolyte powder. I took Micah to the ER. Blood work confirmed it. A sedative in his system at a level the doctor called dangerous for a child his size. He said prolonged dosing could cause seizures or breathing trouble, and asked how long it had been going on. Then he told me something that made me sick. He'd seen 2 other kids from the same program in the past month, unexplained drowsiness, and hadn't connected them until now. I realized Micah had been tired for nearly a month. I'd chalked it up to a growth spurt. The guilt nearly folded me in half. I called the police from the hospital. They said without knowing which staffer did it, they couldn't charge anyone, and one officer gently floated that maybe I'd given him something and forgotten. I couldn't believe it. I went back with the report. Ms. Pruitt barely glanced at it. Kids crash after a long day, she said. Bree stood behind her, staring at the floor. The director read it and said she'd look into it internally, but couldn't discipline staff over one child's labs. I demanded every kid be tested. She said that was illegal and exposed her to lawsuits, and that if I was unhappy, I could find another program. I called everywhere within driving distance. Months-long wait lists. I couldn't afford a private sitter, couldn't miss more work, had no family in the state. The next morning, I had to walk my son back through those doors, and I threw up in the parking lot afterward. I started reaching out to other parents. 3 other kids in the group had been unusually sleepy lately. One mom had taken her daughter to a doctor thinking she had a virus. A dad told me he'd mentioned his son's exhaustion to Ms. Pruitt directly, and she'd laughed and said he should enjoy the quiet. A former employee told me quietly that Ms. Pruitt had a reputation for keeping her difficult kids calm, and that parents had complained for years, but she was close with the director's cousin, so nothing ever stuck. When I mentioned going to the news, the director slid my enrollment agreement across the desk and pointed to the arbitration clause and a paragraph making me liable for damaging their reputation. Ms. Pruitt must have felt bulletproof, because when I picked Micah up that afternoon, she smiled and said, "Long day for the little guy, huh?" I leaned in and told her I knew exactly what she was doing. She whispered back, "Then prove it," and winked at me while my son sagged against my leg. The next morning, I tucked a small camera into the side pocket of Micah's backpack, lens angled out. I sat in the parking lot watching the feed on my phone, hands shaking so hard the picture jumped. At 10:20, I watched Ms. Pruitt take a small bottle from her bag, uncap it, and tip liquid into a row of water bottles on the counter, Micah's and 3 others. She gave each one a little shake and lined them back up like she was pouring juice. 4 children under a minute, part of her routine. I had a felony on video, committed against 4 kids. I didn't storm inside. I drove to the police station, set my phone on a detective's desk, and pressed play. Then I called the state licensing board and the child abuse hotline and emailed the footage to the reporter the director had been so afraid of. They arrested Ms. Pruitt that afternoon. The program lost its license within the month. Micah's home with a new sitter now, my neighbor's retired mother who dotes on him. He sleeps only when he's actually tired, and he's back to talking my ear off at dinner.